Hi everybody, Mike Hancock here, and on this part of our summit we have Pece Gorgievski from Melbourne, Australia. Hi Pece, how are you?
Hey Mike, I'm really well, thank you. Thanks for having me on this show tonight.
Yeah, great, and it's wonderful to have you. He's the chairman, well actually the CEO and founder. I think you've given Vasco the title of chairman of the Global Dialogue Foundation. And have I got your title right? Tell me that first.
So Dr. Vasco Nadovsky is the founder. I'm one of the co-founders, yes, and
Yep.
I'm the current chairman and CEO.
Chairman and CEO, great. Now I've got it right. I'm on the board, so I should know, but I'm not very title focused. I don't even know if I have a title these days. We've known each other a long time now, and I think what you've done for the world is outstanding. And I want to go back to 2008. And 2008, you were in a room at the Duxton Hotel in Western Australia for a weekend that I was running. You were one of about 80 people in the room, and it became obvious to me during that time that you had a massive vision. What was your vision, and why did you start this Global Dialogue Foundation.org?
Yeah, cool, thanks Mike. Well, look, that was about the time I was moving out of, or kind of, I was in a transition phase at the time. I had been running a company that was involved in international logistics, which I was involved in starting the international division. So it's an American company, and my now former business partner and I started the international division. We opened 6 offices in 6 different countries over the 6 or so years we were together. And I was kind of going through a phase where I guess I was having some realizations, deciding that, I actually need to do more in my life. I want to do more in my life to give back to society. And that the way I was going was not really what I was looking for. There's only so much fulfillment I could have got in what I was doing at the time. So I was looking for something else, and kind of that was the turning point, really. When it comes to my ideals for what I was wanting, it was really about, ever since I was a kid, I remember that for me, it was always about uniting people. And the word unity for me has been really prominent throughout my life for as far back as I can remember. So I would be the guy who was always looking to unite people who were, at each other, or unite the team that I was playing in. That was, it was always top of mind for me, unity. Especially in family, especially in wherever I was and whatever I was doing. And then when it was 2007 when this sort of happened for me, and I told my former business partners that, look, I'm looking at transitioning out of what I'm doing and moving into something that's going to contribute more to society than what I'm currently doing. And I reckon I've got about a year. I'll work myself out of the business, and so that happened that way, pretty much. And I actually met Vasco under really interesting circumstances. I was suffering some pretty excruciating back pain, and when I went to visit a friend / travel agent while I was planning an overseas trip for my father and I to take some time out and spend a couple of weeks together, I was in really bad pain. And anyway, they introduced me to Vasco, and we went over to see him that afternoon, and I sat on his treatment chair. He put his hands above my head like so. No, barely any contact except for slightly on my chest. And then within about 20 minutes, he asked me to get up, walk around the room, and whether I'd still had the pain, and it had disappeared. And I'm in excruciating pain, like sciatica shooting down my legs, and and it was gone, and that was it. Never came back. And so I just decided, here's someone I need to find out more about. And he handed me a copy of his book. It's written in Macedonian. It's how he wrote it, and it's a scientific document, really, which I found really difficult to understand, even though I could read basic Macedonian. And so from that point on, I went and saw him once a week, and I'd learned about his work and what he was doing, and everything that I was sort of thinking about, if I multiplied it by 1,000, sort of where he was already at, if not more, So that's sort of the turning point. That was kind of what had it get started.
So tell me, Global Dialogue Foundation, what's the fundamental mandate that sits underneath everything that it does? Because it's very far reaching, and we may get into a little bit more about it later on, but I've got some really specific questions about what's going on in the world and really drawing on your expertise there. But let's just find out, what's the fundamental mandate that sits underneath GDF?
Yeah. So if you look out into the world and you look at the global governance structures we have in place currently, we have a United Nations which is doing what it can to bring nations together, and then countries around the world doing whatever they can to prosper and survive, etc. What Global Dialogue Foundation presents is a model for creating an extra two major pillars in the world. One would be United Civilisations, which is our role, and Global Dialogue Foundation serves as a nucleus for the creation of United Civilisations, which was launched officially last year in India, which we can talk about a little later. Yep. And then also to serve as a model, not to be involved in, but to serve as a model for bringing the different religions together in a type of united religions. So there would be a UN, which is the government pillar, which is already in place. There would be a UC, a United Civilisations, which would be represented by ordinary citizens, ordinary people like you and I, from business, from the private sector, from various sectors. And let's face it, people who are in government roles, when they finish up with their mandates, they end up being ordinary citizens anyway, right? For the most part. And then there'd be a United Religions, which would bring all of the religions together and work together for the common good. So, we're talking about improving living conditions in communities around the world. So that's really to serve as a nucleus for the creation of a UC, a United Civilisations. So that's, in a sentence, that would be it.
In a sentence, that is a huge, huge task, and one I know you never took on lightly, and I find it fascinating that your background, it literally is united, cities united on the planet united with the stars, and even your shirt that you're wearing is united with your background. So it's phenomenal. Pece, you also have a very successful business that you run which is your day job as well, that started a few years back. So, and just so people know that you're, not necessarily Mother Teresa reincarnated, although sometimes you are. What's your day-to-day business? Just tell us what that is.
Yep. Look, prior to Global Dialogue Foundation, I was in the international logistics business. So I'm still in international logistics. And at the time when I did make the transition, I actually removed myself from any business function. So for a period of 7 years, I focused on Global Dialogue Foundation, really committed to it. And I had zero business interest. So I'd sold my interest in the business at the time. So I was able to make some space to really focus on this. I did at the time. I did a lot of personal development work and a lot of traveling. So 7 years on, we two of my brothers, and I'd always had a dream to have a family business. And in my old business, I did hire family, but they weren't my business partners. So two of my brothers were importing together, and they knocked on my door and said, "Look, we're keen on taking this further. What are your thoughts? Would you be interested in joining us?" And at the time, I was sort of in a spot where I really, needed to move on and do something again in the business world. And I said, "Look, yeah, sure, let's do it." So we started pretty much grassroots, and we import and distribute four-wheel drive accessories and camping equipment. So, anything four-wheel drive related, camping, tents, awnings, heavy duty bull bars and so on. That's one part of the business. And then the other part is an international logistics division where we service a select number of importers in Australia, and we help them with their logistics requirements. So handling their imports, helping them bring it here and get it delivered to their factories.
Fantastic. I love this because I'm a great believer in walking with a foot in the material world and a foot in the conscious world. And I think to be a conscious leader these days, you have to do that, or you don't understand the fundamentals of the planet. You can't be just a materialist, and you can't be just a fluffy conscious guru either, because it just doesn't work on either step. Pece, I'm a little concerned, and I want to run this by you because government and people have been coming together with, diversity, and we're all in this together, and unity, and rah, 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 for a number of years now. And it's companies have given more to diversity, and, governments have had immigration policies and everything like that. And yet, when COVID came on the scene, I saw two things from two countries I know very well. One was New Zealand, where the Prime Minister basically said, okay, everybody who's not a New Zealander, you need to leave, out, right? That doesn't sound very humanitarian to me. I mean, some of them would have New Zealand partners. Some of them were there for a long time. Germans seemed to be evicted pretty quickly. So that was interesting. And in South Africa recently, they've rounded up the Germans and sent them back to Germany. So that doesn't seem very united or very conscious. And then in Australia, your Prime Minister there, Scott Morrison, basically said, well, we'll look after our Australian citizens. Oh, by the way, 4.5% of our workforce are New Zealanders, which have reciprocal rights between them, but we're not going to pay you anything because you're New Zealanders. Bad luck. You've looked after us and helped our economy for, maybe 30 years that you've been here, but now we're not going to look after you. You need to either go back to New Zealand or look after yourself, because we're only going to look after the Aussies. And I think my question for you is really, what can we do ourselves, the people listening to this, to ensure that we are creating a more civil society around ourselves in a time where some of the ideals that we've had seem to be being crushed by some of the people who have got pretty big mandates and pretty big axes, if you like?
Well, look, the mission of GDF is really about working with citizens, and it's really grassroots realities, and we're really, really clear about that, and we don't engage in anything that is the domain of government or religion. So, and I guess that's been really a very, very clear focus for us and our members, where when we work with, organizations around the world and mentor them on working, in the Unity in Diversity project, we're really committed to making sure we stay focused on working with citizens on the ground. And what that basically means is, for one, steering clear from any politics, right? That's a first, and that's a given. And, we don't have, we're very clear about that, and for a really good reason, because we don't have access to that domain. We're not interested in working in that area. That's the domain of governments. From our perspective, making a more humane or building a more humane community is really about bringing people in a community together to meet, first of all, to meet and get to know each other, for starters. And
how does that look? How in reality, what's worked well in that area? And what could people that are watching this, that are interested in doing this, what could they do in their community? And also, is there a way in which this could be done more at the moment in an online basis?
Yeah, that's a really good question. To give you a sort of a practical example of what we're talking about is in in Victoria, one of the cities, it's called the City of Whittlesea. So municipality in the north, which is really diverse in terms of cultures. And it's the area I grew up in, so I know it pretty well. We work with the local government there to establish a community leadership network. And basically the community leadership network is an organisation that's registered with the Victorian authorities. So it's registered with Consumer Affairs Victoria, and it's a registered association. So it's run by the community. It has its own governing board. It has its own, its bylaws. It has, an annual general meeting. It elects a governing committee, etc. So we helped put this group together, and I was the, founding vice chair of that group.
Right.
And what we did was we then began to work towards creating a mandate for that organization. And it was really about promoting intercultural dialogue and understanding. And what that looked like was we would reach out into the community and we would invite people from the different cultures and the different groups that live in the city of Whittlesea to come to a monthly meeting at the council offices. So the City of Whittlesea, most councils in Australia these days will have a multicultural policy, or will have goals that are focused on helping integrate the multicultural communities. So we would then work with the team there, with the multicultural officers who became ex officio members of that association. So this group of 8 people would then reach out into the community and invite people to come to a monthly meeting. So once a month, it was, the first Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. or something like that, so that everyone could remember. And we would organize an event on that day. And when we first began, we would serve, a light dinner, a light meal, so that people come straight after work and get to know each other over some food, which is always helpful. So then we would have programs like, we would ask the different groups to present information to the community about their cultural group in Australia. So, right. For example, we'd have the Vietnamese women's group secretary, or the president of their association would talk about the Vietnamese in the community over the last 25 years and what they've been doing, what are the sorts of things that they have found helpful to help them integrate and settle in the city. And around the same table, you'd have, the newly arrived from, let's say, from Somalia or from wherever, and they would be listening, and then they would be there with a couple of their community members. And then you'd see them at the end of the session. They'd go over to the Vietnamese woman and be asking her questions and understanding what it is that they're doing. So they're kind of sharing best practices and sharing knowledge about what it takes to help the community settle and integrate in the country. And then from there, that group developed a 3-year plan, and it basically became the leading, or if you like, the peak body in that community that worked in collaboration with the local government, that was really focused on building dialogue and understanding between the people of the different cultures in the community. So, it wouldn't be uncommon that there'd be 40 to 50 people sitting around the table once a month, and they'd be part of a presentation, let's say, be it from Ambulance Victoria, talking about the available services, legal aid, making people aware of what's available in the community. We'd bring in various speakers. So once a month, there'd be a program where there'd be, where the, people who came in, who presented themselves as leaders of their cultural groups, that they could learn, connect with others, and then go into their groups, into their communities, and help share that knowledge and help people with the integration process.
It's fantastic.
So another example, one of the leading examples of this would be the Leading Women's Health and Safety program that spawned from that. So as you know, in GDF, we have 9 sectors, and one of those sectors is family, and one of the subsectors in family is women. So the women group, one of the board members would then go out and invite other women from the community to join a subcommittee with her. And they would work together to understand the needs of the women in the community. So they would go out and they brought 6 or 7 women together, and they sat around and they workshopped it, they discussed it, and they identified that what the women of the community could do well with would be a women's training program on health and safety. So they put together an 8-week program. There were, in the first group, there were 33 or thereabouts, 33 women from as many different cultural backgrounds. And they came together once a week for 8 weeks for a 2-hour seminar. And the first one may have been on, healthy eating at home. The second one may have been how to handle domestic violence. A third one would have been something else about health. And they did this for 8 weeks. And by the end of the 8 weeks, I saw the 12-minute video snippet where they had pulled together, bits and pieces of the whole program. And the mood was really electric. And, the women are then empowered to go out into their groups and say, right, here's some of the things we need in our group. Let's look at implementing certain programs. So then they get out there and they help the community come together and feel more that they're a part of the city of Whittlesea, that they belong here and that they have a place and that they can contribute to the mainstream society. So when this was presented to the federal member of parliament for that area, he agreed to become the patron of the association, and then he presented it in the Australian Parliament as a real leading example of what is happening in the Australian community on the building understanding between people of different cultures. So it's a real classic case example of helping the community integrate, while they maintain their own cultural identities and heritage and be able to celebrate that in the community.
So helping people integrate while maintaining their cultural heritage and ceremonies, etc., etc. And I so love that you've said that, and it's so important. I want to follow that up with a question, because when you had this idea and you read Vasco's work, and that it was pretty moving, and obviously I've read his book Light Intelligent Creation, which is profound, deep. It's not an easy read, but it's really good. So when you came together, you could have done anything, right? You had a blank sheet, a blank canvas in front of you, and you wanted to do it globally, and you wanted it to be a foundation. But then there was a third word that went in there, because it could have been the Global Food Foundation, the Global Logistics Foundation, because that's obviously an area of your expertise, the Global Shipping Foundation, etc., etc. But it's not. It's the Global Dialogue Foundation. And I'm interested in your opinion and bringing your opinion to what's happening now on the planet as to how important dialogue is now at a civil level, and what individuals watching or listening to this can do to bridge borders, bridge religions, bridge problems, bridge fear through dialogue at the moment.
All right. Yeah, thanks for that. Look, we've been developing, helping initiatives develop around the world for 10 years now. And first of all, the Global Dialogue Foundation really follows on from the Global Dialogue Initiative, which was Vasco's brainchild. And the Global Dialogue Initiative, and you can download it from the homepage at globaldialoguefoundation.org. So it's the Global Dialogue Initiative, which pretty much went out to every sphere of influence, led by Vasco, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, promoting a just dialogue strategy. And it's quite a profound document, and it formed the basis of Global Dialogue Foundation, as did Vasco's writings in Light, which go beyond community work, obviously, and anyone who's interested in learning about that could read about it at our website. but the Unity in Diversity project, really, it's a new name or a modernized name for Vasco's vision of universal brotherhood of mankind. And really, it's about creating the world together across every single culture, and realizing that what unites us is so far greater than what divides us. And so the basis on which we've really moved forward to help initiatives develop around the world is really with people who've listened to what we're doing, who've watched what we're up to, who kind of go, yep, this is really leading edge and I want to be a part of it. And they would write to us or contact us and say, hey, I'm in such and such country and I want to be a part of this. We had a recent example of that in Lenora from the United States, where we presented at the Global Speakers Federation conference in New Zealand. And she contacted us, and she came and presented herself and said, I want to be part of this, I want to be involved in this. And she's proceeded on to set up an office in the United States and really drive that forward. Another example of that is in Africa, where we've had people, and we call them champions because they're championing the cause in their country, and they show up and they say, look, I've read what you're up to. Another example is an organization in Kenya called World Radiance International. They contacted us a few years ago and said, we've read everything you've written, we've seen every video, and there's a lot of content and we want to be a part of it. There's schools here that are shutting down because of the intertribal conflict, and we want to help and so on. So then what we do is we work with those people and help them to create unity and diversity initiatives in their countries. And we're really in favor of working with the local governments or the state governments wherever possible, really to help gain support, but to work in collaboration where it's workable. So, initially when they came to us, they kind of went, well, this is, working with the government, we're not so sure about that. But we presented the example we'd developed, that we'd created in Victoria, and said, here's how we've done it. So anyway, within a couple of weeks, they were knocking on the door of the local commissioner's office. They had a meeting with him, and 2 weeks after that, they had a letter to say, yep, we want to support you. This is great. We're interested in this for Kenya. And then, since then, they're now developing their third, pre-COVID-19, they started to develop their third Unity and Diversity Summer Camp, where they take a group of students away on camp during their school holidays, one, to get them off the street, two, to help them with, develop their ethics and so on. But third, mainly to really understand the concept of unity and diversity so that they can bring it back into their lives and help the integration among people of different cultures and make it more seamless. And the results that they're creating are just marvelous. Another example is, still while we're on Africa, in Cameroon, we host GDF hosts a monthly meeting for all of the country representatives in Africa. And, we all share our experiences, our challenges, and we're all learning from each other. And Cameroon recently started an initiative called Unity and Diversity Clubs. And they're working with one of the bilingual schools. They also have support from the Ministry of Culture. And they are implementing a Unity and Diversity Club program where for the first time ever in this bilingual school, they're actually bringing kids together and saying, right, what can we do to help promote unity in this school? And unity and diversity really is the way forward for us. So, they're just two examples around the world.
Fantastic examples. Pece, in your mind now, in a world that's, for most people, changed dramatically in the last couple of months, and will have ongoing effect, there will possibly be more lockdowns around the world, and those lockdowns are very different. I know in Melbourne, where you're from, people can still basically go to work during the lockdown. But in South Africa, where I am at the moment, we can't even walk the dog outside. We're not allowed outside of we're not even allowed in the common area of our apartment building. So, so that's basically the laws are different all around the world. So coming out of this, people have had two real emotions, I feel, sort of creeping in for them over the last few weeks. One has been fear. That's been a huge emotion for people. You know, what's going to happen to my life, my business, my bank account, my everything, right? And the other one has been guilt. Should I have done something different? Gee, now I have to spend time with my family. It's the first time I've done that in years because I'm such a workaholic. You know, did I contribute to this in some way? All of those sort of things. So from a perspective of civilization, I'm interested in your insights of what you feel, again, and I like to bring it back to the micro, what you feel we can do, all of us, to continue to live in a civil society supported by a lifestyle that most of us have really enjoyed, and in a world where it's, you know, we're able to, pretty much all of us, to achieve our dreams if we just want to. So I'm really interested in your comments on that from your perspective of being such a diverse organization. You know, you've got 9 subgroups, and 9 groups and subgroups under those 9 groups. You're everywhere from Cameroon to, you know, Coburg. So, so I'm interested in your perspective.
Look, you know, I guess this is a drastic change in our way of life for everybody, and I think that and constantly, you know, I'm constantly thinking about what we may be able to do online to connect further. And for me, look, I think that, you know, extending out and reaching out to people in support of, you know, supporting them in whichever way you can or whichever way they may need is a really big deal. And so much so that, you know, I feel that it's, you know, most of us will find great joy in service, and or many of us, I should say, in, you know, from my experience. And this is a great time to be able to do that. And, you know, I guess a lot of people have a lot more time on their hands today than they did, you know, only a month ago. And ideally, from the Global Dialogue Foundation's perspective, there is, in my mind, a real opportunity to invite people to step up who are really interested in helping to bring communities in their own locations together.
Yep.
So what I do know is that from the work we've done with the City of Whittlesea and from the work we've done in other countries, you know, and Africa is only one other part. Obviously, as you know, we've done a lot of work in India. We've also done work in the Balkans, in Europe. You know, and there's a lot happening around the world in the diversity space, and unity in diversity has become a real buzzword. You know, the Indian government has taken it on as a slogan. So it's really become, you know, if you go back only 5 or 6 years ago, you would be hard pressed to find anything written about cultural diversity. And nowadays it's everywhere. You only need to Google search and you'll find a million articles on cultural diversity in the business, and diversity officers on focusing on culture and not just traditional, you know, diversity, you know, pillars. But anyway,
and you guys were some of the people that made that happen.
Well, we were certainly among it, absolutely. And, you know, we've been driving forward a big mission. And when we first started with our very first forum in Melbourne in 2010, you know, the United Nations Alliance of Civilisations came to that event, and we worked together on the development of that. It was delivered under the auspices of the Alliance, and we developed that together, and then we developed the next one in India together, and then we worked together quite a lot to really drive it forward. And, you know, that was the core group driving that whole thing forward. So yeah, we've been in it for quite a while, and we're pioneering the way in establishing a global framework through which people in different communities can come together and really work together. And, you know, I'll always go back to my memory of the federal member of parliament in my last meeting with him in the city of Whittlesea. And what he said to me was, I cannot explain to you in words how much benefit this community has gained from the work your group has been doing here. It's just profound. And you know, you know, I read his speech in the Australian Parliament on it, and it was really, you know, humbling, and what I really get from it all is that it's a simple, really simple yet very, very effective way to move forward. And so anyone around the world who's interested in really working in the diversity space or helping to bring communities together, I would invite you to reach out and let us know what you're up to, or what you're, you know, there's already a massive number of initiatives out there, and see if there's a way we could work together to help move that forward. And, you know, if you think about it, when we're talking about unity and diversity in communities, we have one example in the city of Whittlesea, but, you know, going forward, the United Civilisations framework, the whole thing is based on people from communities representing their community at state level, people from the state level representing their country, their state at a country level, and people at the country level from that whole framework representing their country at the international level. So, you know, if you imagine the United Nations being one big framework and we have representatives in other countries, similar, but really focused on community initiatives, but working in collaboration with governments, the United Nations, and down the road, potentially a United Religions.
Yeah, I love that. I think, you know, hearing this, people need to go to globaldialoguefoundation.org and download the paper. What is it? Where do you find that?
Global Dialogue Initiative, yeah. So it's, if you go to the Global Dialogue Foundation website, you'll find the Global Dialogue Initiative immediately under the first, front and center, yeah. Just download the document
and look at where they can plug and play with that, because the market's only going to get bigger. And I think one of the trends that I'm seeing, and then we'll start to bring this together. But one of the trends that I'm seeing is that, you know, there's a lot of people now that have had to come home, and, you know, these are people that used to go to work at 6 a.m. in the morning and come home at 8 o'clock at night, and now they're home 24/7. And so they're looking around their house and they're going, gee, I might have to be here for a while. I'm going to renovate this place. So, you know, there's a lot of DIYers messing around with stuff at the moment, and that's great, and they're having fun. But the interesting thing is that one of the outcomes of this is that we're going to be stuck in our communities a lot more. And what that means is that, you know, corporations have found and are finding ways for people to do what they used to do by getting on planes and going across the world online. And, you know, I had an amazing call last week with somebody, I don't remember who it was, who was talking to one of their clients who used Zoom, which is what we're using for this, for the very first time in Malaysia, and said, for the last 8 years, he's had clients that he's driven backwards and forwards twice a week from Penang to KL to visit, and he could have done it all online, and he never realized. So we're going to get a lot of that. So what that means is people are going to become a little bit more insular. There's going to be the fear. They're going to be scared to travel a little bit, even go interstate, and those type of things. So that, you know, that may be a strength or a weakness depending on where you're coming from. But the opposite of that is now you're going to look around your community. And so I look around, you know, our community in South Africa, which is one of our homes here. And, you know, in the community we live in, there's obviously a lot of British South Africans, Afrikaans South Africans, coloured South Africans, and Zulus and Xhosas, and a few other tribes there. Plus, in my ecosystem of my apartment building in which we live, most of our neighbours are Swiss, French, German, Norwegian, or British. So therefore, now we have a very unique and diverse ecosystem. So if I go to the restaurant that's, 500 meters down the road that Lundy and I like to go to, we're going to have a Corsa waiter, a Zulu chef, somebody else maitre d'. Sitting in there is going to be the whole host of races of South Africa, plus British, German, Swiss, and us, a Kiwi and a South African. So what that means, I think, is a lot of people are going to have to get very comfortable very quickly in their own home community, whether it be Whittlesea, whether it be the Strand in South Africa, or whether it be, Soho in New York. They're going to have to really start to ingrain in that. So what are one or two ways to sort of bring this to a close that you feel people could get more connected locally fast?
Well, Zoom is a phenomenal way to do that. And the more I think about it, I just want to draw on an example. We had a small group a few years ago in Bulgaria who, we have a champion there. She runs an NGO, and she said, look, I want to try and bring this to my community. I love the concept, I love the idea, but I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to do this. And so she was connected to, a community leader of the different religious groups or different cultural groups. So when she called, I worked with her, and when she called on each of them to invite them to a meeting, a face-to-face meeting, they all responded to her with, are you kidding? Are you like out of your mind? This is like, are you serious? You want to try and do this? Anyway, she got the meeting together, and Ileana, who has been with GDF for a long time, she joined them in this meeting. And for the first hour, they were scratching their heads going, but what are we actually going to do together? And how are we ever going to make any progress in a community that's so divided? Anyway, what the feedback I got was, after an hour and a half or so of this debate, they all relaxed and they went, wow, this is actually possible. This is actually possible that we can bring people from each of our groups all together to focus on what can be done to help the community improve livelihoods. So when I take the current situation and I glean on that example, there are people in communities who are really struggling at the moment and who are really finding it tough. And even if it is just to say hello and ask somebody how they're going and help them, connect with someone. So Zoom is a great way to do that. But going forward and thinking about unity and diversity, we're really interested now in launching a European, a monthly European group that would come together once a month on Zoom, like we do with Africa. We'd have a European group that meets once a month on Zoom, and we would, start off by sharing information about what GDF is and what the Unity and Diversity Initiative is. And then we would explore what some of the possibilities are, or what are some of the happenings, and how we could help move that ahead. But really, for anyone who's watching and was interested in being involved, please reach out, write to me. My email address is pece@globaldialoguefoundation.org, or you can just write to info@globaldialoguefoundation.org. Let me know you're interested in participating or being involved, and I'll be delighted to take some time with you and explore, and then become part of a monthly Zoom call just like this for Europe. And also for you to join on the global call as well, if you would like. And then from my perspective, it would be to reach out to a few people, and it could be to invite some people in your community who to start, and just let them know that you're wanting to do a community Zoom call. And the purpose of the community Zoom call is to check in with each other and just understand whether there's anything that really needs urgent attention, where someone needs help, where we could really start to look outside of our own, property boundaries and look towards supporting others. So you might have a weekly call, or a call every other day, or whatever would be appropriate. And you and your small group of friends could reach out and invite some of your friends who are outside of that circle to join and participate. And you might get a small group going once a week or every other day, or however often you feel would be appropriate. And you can just explore what's happening in the community, share thoughts, share ideas, and then perhaps start to think about, outside of COVID-19 shutdown, what could we potentially do to bring community together, to identify the needs of the community, and then when we're able to go out, actually go out and address those. And I think really that's where it's at. Meeting, from our perspective, it's really about bringing people together, having a dialogue. And we would be delighted to host some of those and join in on some of those and help through a process to work with you on that. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. So to bring this to a close, I think it's a great call to action for people to get involved in dialogue, because everything starts with dialogue, right? And I love the fact that you, with the United Civilisations and then with a future vision to United Religion, and you've done that work. I mean, we're not talking pie in the sky stuff here, folks. I mean, Pece and his team's brought leaders of governments together, leaders of religions together across nations, across the world, live in various forums, online, through documents, through different types of mediums already. And the start of everything is to create dialogue so that we can truly communicate. And communication is the biggest thing that's going to get us back to where we may want to be, even if that looks different than the world that we had in the past. So, Pece, I want to thank you for being on the call with us today. And I really encourage people to connect with you. I really appreciate your time and everything that you've done.
Mike, if I can just add, just in a closing, a vision like United Civilisations is enormous, and it's taken me the best part of 10 years to understand it myself, and I'm in it and I'm working in it. So I can understand and appreciate that it's not an easy thing to grasp, especially if you're trying to grapple with, how does it all happen? How does it all work? And it's impossible in this world. And I do want to say that we've gone past impossible, and it is well and truly underway. And it is over time, for people who are really interested, we'll take the time to help explain so that you're clear on it, and so that you're best able to contribute towards it. And that it's it is really stepping forward into the new world, and we could consider that going out of this crisis, we're really stepping into a new world. And
we are.
The moments that we've been waiting for are here. Maybe that's it.
That's exactly right.
It's it's an exciting time, and we're all and the best part about it is that we're learning together and actually doing it together. That's really the best part.
Yeah, it is. We certainly are. Well, again, thank you, and wish you all the best. Looking forward to catching up with you soon.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks very much.
See you.